I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here we are. My name's Jake, and I've been married to Lisa for about 5 years now. We met young, fell hard, and I genuinely thought I knew everything about her. She's the kind of woman who's always been a little bitchy, always stuck up, but I loved her for her fire, at least I did. Things started to feel off maybe 6 months ago. Small signs, but enough to make my gut tighten every time I thought about it. She'd start leaving her phone around more often, and when I'd ask her about it, she'd roll her eyes and say she was just tired of hiding her messages from me. That's Lisa for you. She's always been good at lying, even when she knows she's caught. But I never fully suspected she was cheating, not until last week. That's when everything hit a new level of fucked up. It started with her acting weird, avoiding me more than usual. Little things, like she'd get defensive if I asked where she'd been after work, or she'd suddenly have a new excuse for why she had to stay late. At the office, then I noticed her phone was constantly in her hand, always silent, always hiding her messages. I caught her deleting texts once, and that's when I really started feeling uneasy. One night I was lying in bed scrolling through my own stuff when I saw a message pop up on her phone. Nothing odd at first glance, just a "good night, babe" from her. But then I saw the name attached, Michael. Yeah, my best friend's name. And that's when my stomach dropped. I wasn't stupid. I knew what that meant. I pulled her phone out of her hand when she was asleep and started reading. The messages were explicit, dirty talk, plans to meet up, her saying she was so horny, and him telling her she was the hottest thing he'd ever seen. They were planning to hook up again, and she was full-on lying to me about everything. All those times she told me she was just tired, that she loved me, that she'd never cheat. She'd been lying the whole time. I couldn't believe it. I felt sick, betrayed, furious. I kept staring at her phone, trying to process what I'd just discovered. That's when I knew I had to confront her. There was no way I could keep quiet anymore. The next morning I could hardly sleep. My mind was racing 100 miles an hour, replaying everything I'd just read. I kept thinking about all the times she'd snapped at me for no reason, the little lies she told just to cover her ass, and now I knew she'd been screwing my best friend behind my back. It was like my entire world was falling apart, and I was just standing there watching it happen. I waited until she left for work, trying to gather my thoughts, trying to breathe. When she was gone, I unlocked her phone again. This time I was looking for more evidence, more signs I'd missed. I found a string of messages from Michael's number, all from the night before. They were talking about meeting up again that evening, discussing what to do, where to go. She'd been planning it all along, lying through her teeth, telling me she was at yoga or out with her sister. I felt my blood boil. I knew I had to confront her, but I also wanted to be prepared. I didn't want to just yell and make a scene. I needed to hear her explain herself if she even could. I decided to come home early that day, just to catch her in the act or get some kind of confirmation. I think I almost wanted her to deny everything, just to see how deep her lies went. I didn't expect to find her lying in bed, texting Michael again, her phone glowing in her hand. I don't remember exactly what I said when I walked in. I think I just stood there, staring. She looked up, saw me, and her face changed instantly: anger, annoyance, a little panic. She told me she was just talking, that Michael was just a friend, that I was imagining things. That's when she started the bullshit about how I was paranoid, how she loved me but maybe I wasn't giving her enough attention, how I was just overreacting because I was insecure. I didn't buy it, not even for a second. The look in her eyes, the way her voice cracked when she lied, I knew she was full of shit. I told her I'd read everything, that I knew she'd been lying all along. Her reaction was classic. She shrugged, biting her lip like I was just some jealous idiot, then said, "So what? Everyone cheats sometimes. Maybe I just needed a little fun, Jake." That's when I lost it. I told her I was done, that I wasn't going to be played anymore. I needed to think about what this meant for us, but I knew one thing for sure. My trust was completely shattered, and I wasn't sure if I could ever get it back. After I confronted her, Lisa just sat there, looking smug, like she thought she'd won some kind of victory. She kept telling me that I was overreacting, that I was jealous and insecure, and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. She said Michael was just a harmless friend, and that I was paranoid if I thought they were actually sleeping together. I could see her edge. her bitchy attitude flaring up every time I pressed her for details. I felt like I was in some weird nightmare. My wife, the woman I loved, was sitting right in front of me, lying her ass off, and my best friend was probably just a few blocks away, knowing full well she was asleep with him on his mind. That mix of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief hit me hard. I couldn't believe she'd been lying to me from the start. All those little things, the sneaky glances, the sudden disappearances, she'd been hiding her affair the whole time and I'd been blind to it. I knew I couldn't stay that way. I had to do something. I decided to gather all the evidence I could, screenshots, messages, anything that proved beyond a doubt what she'd been up to. I didn't want her to deny it again or spin some bullshit. I wanted her to see that I knew every dirty detail. I also started thinking about how I'd handle her, what kind of revenge would hurt her the most, but I kept it locked in my head for now. I needed clarity, not just rage. That night, I went through her phone again, saved everything, and started planning how I was going to confront Michael. I wasn't going to make a scene or blow everything up right away, but I was definitely going to make them both regret messing with me. I realized I had to face the fact that my marriage was probably over, but I didn't want her to walk away thinking she'd gotten away with it. That's when I decided I'd make her pay, not with violence or some petty revenge, but with making her see that she'd lost everything she ever pretended to care about. Honestly, I'm still trying to process how someone I trusted so completely could turn out to be this manipulative, selfish bitch. The betrayal runs deep, and I keep asking myself how I missed all the signs. But deep down, I know one thing. I won't be the fool in this story anymore. I've got my evidence, my plan, and I'm ready to take control of what's left of my life. I just hope I can come out of this with some dignity intact. The next few days were a roller coaster I wouldn't wish on anyone. I stayed quiet most of the time, pretending to go about my day, but inside I was boiling. Every time I saw her, I'd catch her eye, and I could tell she knew I was onto her. That smug look she had when she thought she'd played me, that's what pushed me over the edge. I realized I couldn't just sit around and stew. I had to do something, and fast. I decided I'd catch her in a lie, and if she was going to keep denying everything, I'd force her to admit it. I set up a little trap, just enough to make her slip up. I told her I was going out for a few hours, but I stayed close by, lurking behind a corner, watching her. She left the house with her purse, phone tucked into her pocket, and her head held high. I followed her, keeping a safe distance. She headed to the same restaurant where she and Michael had made plans earlier that week. I watched her walk in, her heels clicking on the pavement and my stomach clenched. She sat at a corner table, pulled out her phone, and started texting. I couldn't see what she was saying, but I knew it was her and Michael. I saw her smile at her screen, her bitchy smirk that I'd become so familiar with. That moment was like a punch to the gut. I realized I'd been a fool to believe her lies, to think she loved me. She was just using me, stringing me along while she fucked around. The anger inside me grew hotter. I snapped a few pictures of her on my phone, just enough proof to make her realize I wasn't messing around. I knew I had to confront her that night face to face, and I was ready for the chaos that would come with it. I also reached out to Michael, knowing I shouldn't, but I couldn't help myself. I sent him a message, telling him I knew exactly what was going on, that I had proof, and that I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I wanted him to know I wasn't some pushover, that I was coming for both of them. That's when I started planning the big confrontation, one that would put everything out in the open, whether she liked it or not. I wasn't going to let her keep lying, not anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with everything I'd uncovered and the confrontation I knew was coming. I'd decided I wouldn't hold back anymore. I was done with her bullshit, done with being played for a fool. I had the evidence, I had the plan, and I was ready to rip the Band-Aid off. Around midnight, I texted her, telling her to come home early. I told her I had something to tell her, something she wouldn't like. Her reply was quick, typical Lisa, snippy and dismissive. "What now? Can't you leave me alone for once?" she wrote. That just made my blood boil. I knew she was trying to act like everything was fine, like I was overreacting. But I was done playing her little game. When she finally came in, I was already waiting in the living room. She looked annoyed, hair a mess, makeup half off, the usual bitchy smirk on her face. I didn't waste any time. I pulled out the pictures I'd taken, the screenshots, everything. Her face instantly lost that smug look. She started protesting, saying I was crazy, that I was just jealous, that I was making everything up. But I had enough. I slammed the phone down on the table and told her I knew the truth about her affair with Michael, about her lying, about her sneaking around behind my back. Her reaction was priceless. She blinked, then scoffed. "Oh, please, you're overreacting. It means nothing. We're just friends. You're just insecure." She spat out, trying to brush it off. I could see the panic behind her eyes, but she was still trying to act like she was the victim. I told her I didn't want to hear her excuses anymore. I told her I was done being played, that I deserved honesty, not this bullshit. Her bitchy attitude only got worse. She started calling me paranoid, saying I was making a mountain out of a molehill. She told me I was crazy for even thinking she'd cheat on me. That's when I realized she'd been lying so long she'd convinced herself it was okay, but I wasn't having it anymore. I told her I wanted her gone, that I never wanted to see her face again, that I was done with her lies and her manipulations. The worst part, watching her deny everything, acting like she was the innocent one, even after all the proof. It hit me then. This isn't just about cheating. It's about betrayal on a level I never imagined. Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, was shattered. I knew I had to make a choice then, whether to forgive and try to fix this or cut my losses, but deep down I knew this was the end. I just didn't know how bad it would get from here. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. The betrayal was so raw, so deep, that I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, smug, lying, pretending she was innocent. Every time I looked at my phone, I was reminded of the messages, the plan she'd been hiding. It felt like my entire life had been a lie, and I was only just starting to understand how much damage she'd done. I decided I needed to get out of that house. I packed a bag, told her I was leaving, and that I'd be back when I could figure out what I really wanted. Honestly, I felt numb, but a part of me wanted to burn everything down, to make her feel some of the pain she'd caused. But I knew that wouldn't fix anything. So I left, got a hotel, and just sat there thinking about everything. Over the next few weeks, I cut contact, blocked her on social media, changed my number, and tried to rebuild my life without her. I won't lie. There were nights I wanted to call her, to hear her voice, to see if she'd try to reach out. But I knew better. She was a liar, a manipulator, and I didn't want anything to do with her anymore. The trust was gone, and I realized I'd never be able to forget what she did, no matter how much I wanted to. Reflecting on it now, I see how much this whole mess has taught me. I learned that trust is fragile, and that sometimes you don't see the signs until it's too late. I also learned that some people, like Lisa, are capable of lying and cheating without remorse. And most importantly, I learned that revenge, while satisfying in the moment, doesn't bring true peace. Moving on is the real victory. If there's one thing I want to tell anyone reading this, it's this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags because you think you're overreacting or afraid of losing someone. Because when it's all said and done, the truth always comes out. And when it does, you've got to find a way to pick up the pieces and move on. I'm still healing, still trying to forget her, but I know one thing: I'm better off without her bullshit in my life. And I hope anyone in a similar situation finds the strength to walk away, no matter how painful it is right now.